Hey everyone, Jeremy Scott here. It's your host on this podcast, and I have not been here since the 6th of October 2023. So that's a while, and obviously a bit significant as well because the next day everything kicked off in Israel. So Israel and Gaza, and that's still continuing. That was a real shock. I think a real shock for everyone. We weren't expecting that. But then again, the astrologers would probably say, well, we told you these things would happen. And obviously they were right. So that's obviously not the theme of this podcast. As some of you know, if you've been listening to one or two of the other episodes, I'm on a book journey, and I started a book journey. So this is way last year. Yeah, and from October to December, I was actually crafting a book proposal to submit to Hay House as part of one of their contests. As I'm part of their writers community, we have 2 times in a year where we can submit proposals for our books, or tarot cards or oracle cards, these kind of things. So I was crafting that, and I submitted my proposal to Hay House on December the 15th. And yesterday, February the 15th, we got the results. And no, I'm not one of the winners. So, however, that doesn't quite surprise me, because my intention had been to actually submit the proposal. That was the winner for me, was that I actually crafted one and submitted it, so that I had that sense of achievement in that way. And my intention was, we'll see where it goes. If it's successful, it's successful. If I'm listed as one of the winners, whoop-de-doo. If not, then hey, there's always next time or another route. I did get some unofficial feedback that the proposal, the idea was good, but it was very complicated. I was trying to add too much into it. Too many themes rolled up into one, and it's my old story. I ended up, last year I ended up stripping everything out because I felt I was writing three or four books in one. And even with the stripping out, I found out that I was still doing that, writing 3 books in one or whatever. So 3 or 4 major ideas, trying to squeeze them all together under one banner. And it just wasn't working, in all honesty. So that was the advice I got, was you need to strip it out again, work on it, come from a different angle, simplify it, make it easier to digest. Because there's one thing I've noticed, even when it's, say, a major theme or whatever, the most successful authors, in non-fiction, this maybe applied to fiction as well, I don't know, but in non-fiction in particular, they have one theme, don't they? They have maybe 1 or 2 great ideas, but they have one major theme, and it kind of all fits together like a jigsaw, and they approach it with a more simplistic view, if you like. I'm not talking about kiddie book style, I don't mean it like that, but in a way that helps make their theme, their book, easier to read and easier to digest. So it's more like a light reading rather than a big heavy tome, like you get with some of these psychological books or scientific books where they go into great detail. And for those who are interested in the science or the psychology of things, that's great. That's probably what they want. They're looking for that kind of information. But for the general public, like most of us are, those topics and so on are too complicated. So we'd rather have it broken down into bite-sized chunks, if you like, to make it easier to read, to digest. And there's one book in particular I'm thinking of that does that really nicely, that makes that crossover between science and Spirituality, and it's by an author called Currivan, Jude Currivan, Currivan, and she's a cosmologist, and she's written a book called The Story of Gaia, and basically it's taking you through from what was perceived to be the Big Bang all the way through up to what's going on now, maybe a bit further on. But the way she puts it across from a spiritual aspect makes it a bit easier to read. Now, there's still difficult bits in it, there's a lot of details, and because her audience mainly is those who are on that crossover, so those who are what we'd call left brain, analytical brain, and who are also interested in right brain stuff, the spiritual side of things. So that's her main audience. And that works for her. I found it very informative and quite easy to read. There are some difficult parts, some that I would go, start yawning, to be honest. But that's just me, But there's elements of it that I really, really enjoyed. So I would recommend that book to you. If you are one of those who are a little bit left and right brained, you'd probably enjoy that kind of book, especially if you're into the more spiritual side of things as well. But with the book I was attempting to write, I don't know if I actually announced the title on here. I was calling it Embrace Your Ego, Rise Above the Chaos and Restore the Balance and Harmony into your life. And the idea was that we should get to know our ego, work with it, and turn it from a worst enemy into our best friend. And the reason for that is we cannot get rid of our ego. And we hear all these spiritual teachers, motivational speakers, and there's hundreds of books, psychologists and all things, people like that and so on, who are saying, kill the ego, destroy it, and get rid of it, and then you'll have happiness. No, you won't, because your ego is an essential part of you. You can no more kill your ego than you can kill your shadow. And you might say, oh, wait a minute, if I'm dead, then I've got no shadow. Yes, you have, because if light shines on your lifeless corpse, it's going to cast a shadow, isn't it? It's the same with the ego. It's not a physical entity. It is also made of energy, same as the rest of us. We're all made of energy, as quantum physics is bearing out and proving with quantum entanglement and such wonderful things like that. So the ego then is not something that's physical. The way I would describe it would be in the sense of, if you take, for those of you who are like geeky on computers and stuff like that, you might correct me, but this is the way I view it. The ego is like the hard drive of a computer, in the sense of it's the programming of that hard drive. And we all know that without a hard drive, a computer won't work. Whether that computer's in your phone, or whether it's your desktop, your laptop, whatever it happens to be. Without a hard drive, it's not going to work. All the other bits and pieces could fail, that your apps could fail, your memory could fail, but you'd still be there, wouldn't you? The computer would still be there. If the memory side of it, if it couldn't retain anything you put in when you're doing writing something, you put it in a document and you click save, and it can't do that because the memory's full or it's just not working. But you can still write it and maybe print it out. There's still an option. But if the hard drive goes, and that obviously, along with the programming that goes with it, that's part of it, then that computer's not going to work. So your ego is very similar to that, I feel, or our ego, perhaps I should say, because we have an internal program that keeps us going in this physical form. That part of us that looks after all our situations with blood flow and the organs, taking care of them, looking after the bones and the growth and how the brain is working and all these other functions when we're speaking, when we do things even without thinking, closing our eyes, blinking our eyes, sticking our tongue out, tasting, smelling, all these things, all these functions, right, are all part of a program, you could say, which are controlled by ego. That's the ego's function, in my opinion. That's the ego's function, is to take care of all those things that we have within this meat suit, this human suit that we have whilst we're here in this physical form. The ego originally also was in charge of protecting us and looking after us in that way as well. So kept us free from danger, kept us away from precipices, from wild animals, from then later obviously when we started having battles with each other, maybe protected us there or didn't, depending on the situation, depending on the story that we came to fulfill. So now, in most cases, I would say, that part of the ego is no longer needed. It's defunct, because there are no wild beasts that we have to fight off constantly whilst we're out foraging for food or hunting. I know in some areas you still have them, especially in Asia with tigers and things, but that's where we've encroached on their territory, and they're coming to look for their lunch instead of finding fields of corn or soya or something like that. So they're obviously going to react in a certain way. They want their food as well. So when we have that kind of situation, the ego, I feel, has become overprotective. And everything now is fear-based, isn't it? We only have to look at not only the media, but also the kinds of things, shows and films or movies that we see. A lot of them are fear-based. They're all wars or murders or graphic scenes of violence, anger, and even when aliens come to visit us, what do we want to do? We want to blow them up, shoot them down, that kind of situation, because we think they're dangerous. We don't know what they are, so let's kill them. That kind of situation is what we have right now. In many areas, and we can see that with all the different wars and conflicts that are going on. That all comes from that fear, and the ego, our ego, is using that fear to protect us. And you could say, well, that's mainly a man thing, and you're right. There's a lot of that is very, very male dominated, because that'd be back in the day. The males were considered to be stronger, and they were the ones who reacted and protected us. And when you have that kind of situation, it can get out of hand when there's nothing to protect in that sense. And when we move forward and start to evolve, that sense of protection is still there. That's still very much dominant. And even though we become farmers rather than foragers, rather than hunters, you still have that sense of need to protect. And that is very much dominant in the male, because of times back then when the male, being the stronger in the tribe, were the ones who did all the protecting. Back in the days of hunter-gatherers and so on. Some cases it was the female who was the protector, and still is in some areas. So you get some very strong females out there, which kind of keeps the balance a little bit, although not fully. Yeah, from that point of view. So that you bring that forward to today, and you're getting a situation where it's the male who feels threatened. It's the male who feels, oh, we have to do something about this. They're invading our territory kind of situation. Let's go destroy them. You know, invade their territory and take their territory away from them. That's the kind of attitude that's been going on thousands, tens of thousands of years. You know, maybe hundreds of thousands of years for all we know. And that's perpetuated over time. And it's developed and got stronger and stronger. You might think, well, where are we going? Can't we stop it? We can. It's a case of changing our thoughts and our actions, changing our view of things and how we interact with each other. And there is, I would say, an upswell of positivity that we visualize or see or can feel all around our wonderful university of life, as I like to call it. And that upswell of positivity is bubbling up. If you've ever made porridge, right, you've got porridge on the hob, you know, in a saucepan, and you put all the ingredients in there, water or milk or whatever it is you want, and along with the oats, and after time it starts bubbling up, and then, you know, and it maybe starts in one central point, and it's just like, and then other parts start to, you know, and it spouts up like little mini volcanoes almost. You know, that's how I see and feel that the positivity that we want is starting to make itself known, to be manifest in that sense. And that bubbling up is getting stronger. And it's happening all around this university of life, this planet, this earth, this wonderful home that we have. And it's having an impact. How many times have we been able to stop wars from starting or cause a ceasefire? You know, whether it's through activists or whether it's through meditation, whether it's through diplomacy, all these kinds of things. So instead of going to war straight away, you know, there's been more dialogue than action. Unfortunately, when all else fails, then violence is resorted to, which is a real shame as well. But there's always a way to get rid of all that testosterone kind of attitude. And it's not just the males that do it, you know, as a byword, because time and time again, how often have we seen that the female goads the male on in different situations, you know, encouraging them, you know, to do something because they feel hurt or they feel damaged or they feel annoyed or they feel irritated and so on, and they know that they can't do anything themselves, but their partner or friend or whoever it is can. But it's the male that gets into trouble a lot of the times. I'm not saying that happens all the time, by the way. It does happen though. You know, more a very recent case here in UK was a young transgender student who was stabbed to death by two people who he considered to be, or she considered to be, her friends. 16 years old, stabbed to death by two supposed friends, one male, one female, and it was the female who was egging the male on through texts and WhatsApps and stuff like that, you know, planning, let's do this. And you know, they still haven't shown any remorse. They're in jail now. They'll be in jail probably for life, not let out again, or we don't know. we have tragic circumstances like that, and you probably know of similar kinds of things in your own area that are happening, all the different crime and stuff like that. So our ego plays a part in that because it thinks it's protecting us. So we lash out. I've done that in the past. You know, I used to have what I call a berserker mentality. And the way it worked for me was if someone punched me or kicked me or hurt me in some way, instead of going down or and crying and stuff like that, I would get extremely angry. I would fly into a rage, and all I wanted to do was destroy that other person. And I come close to that a couple of times, and I had to hold myself back, I had to drag myself back. Something dragged me back. I believe I was protected. You can call it guardian angel or conscience, whatever you want to call it. But I was stopped from inflicting very serious injury on a number of occasions. That's more in my younger days, not so much now. Nowadays it's the computer keyboard or the laptop that bears the brunt. And I've gone through a few of those. But I'm still learning, and I would say I'm much further along with controlling that situation because I am working with my ego and not against it. I've embraced my ego. I call my ego Rob, so I like to personalize things. So Rob and me work together. You know, if certain thoughts come up that could trigger me, he throws them up, I deal with them in a positive way. So like playing catch ball. You know, he throws a ball, catch it, or I hit it with a bat or whatever. He throws another one, and he throws another one. You know, fantasies and things like that. And I deal with them in a more positive and beneficial way. And obviously I use meditation as well. But since I started working with Rob, my ego, life has changed. Very much so. I'm a lot calmer, a lot more at peace. I'm not allowing situations on the news to trigger me as much. And if they do trigger me, because there's going to be that odd occasion when something happens and you go, oh, I very quickly get back to myself, to the centre of myself, if you like, to my heart. And your heart is a key element here. The love that you have in your heart, that's a key element to overcoming all this drama and hate and all kinds of stuff like that. And it works. But I've been working with my ego now for a while, which is why I decided to write the book about it. I hadn't realised at first that was what I was doing. Then the insight came. Yes, this is what I'm doing. Working with my ego, trying to not control it, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to destroy it. I didn't like anything like that. Destroy your ego, annihilate it. Oh, that didn't sit well with me at all. So that felt wrong for me. So now I'm working with my ego, and Rob is now my best friend as a result of that. All these things I cover, or will be covering, in my book in some way, shape or form, and I'll keep you updated as and when to let you know how I'm progressing. You can find me on Facebook, Jeremy Scott Spiritual. I'm also on YouTube, Jeremy R. Scott Author, and you'll find a lot of old material on there when I used to use my birth name, or at least the name that's on my birth certificate, let's put it that way. You know, but it's still relevant. Law of attraction stuff, network marketing stuff if you're into network marketing. But it's more to do with personal and self-improvement. So I'm going back, in that sense, to my roots, to where I started. Because I feel that is what I want to do. That feels right in my heart, to be able to do that. To move forward in a way which is helping others to become better versions of themselves, helping others to get out of the rut, to get rid of self-sabotaging actions, thoughts and so on, to overcome doubts, to raise their self-esteem, to have the confidence to get rid of this idea of imposter syndrome and all these kinds of things which are holding perhaps yourself or others back. So that's what my book is going to focus on going forward. And I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it. So I'll keep you updated now that I've rediscovered my podcast. I've got it linked to YouTube as well. So if you're on YouTube, you can listen to it there as well. So, well, let's see. Hopefully, anyway, because I know that my back catalogue of episodes has been uploaded to YouTube. I've put the RSS feed in, but I use Spotify. Podcasters for Spotify, whatever you call it, used to be Anchor, to record and publish my episodes. So it should automatically go onto my YouTube channel as well, as and when I publish. Although I may have to, what I call, titivate it a bit on YouTube, so that it ranks better, or I'll probably have to make it public or things like that. It's normal stuff that you do on YouTube. Maybe do a thumbnail or something like that. Thumbnail. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Thank you for listening and taking the time to do so. Let me know in the comments if you've got any ideas on that, anything you'd like to share or comment on. I'll welcome those. And here's to the next one. I'll let you know soon as to the progress and so on that I'm making. I'm hoping that I'll be able to make this a weekly effort now, and really focus on that as well. Not just talking about the book, but talking about other themes as well. So it won't be just book. It'll be other things as well that I'm be sharing as we go along. So thank you so much for listening, guys. Until next time, namaste.